So in the last video, what we did was we had actually set up this engine project. So now we have a separate project called engine where it's going to contain all the main core functions of the engine. Okay, so if I explain it using this diagram that I had made in my previous video as well, this is our core engine. It's going to contain all the core functions. This project is our core engine. It contains all the core functions, the shaders, textures, window, stuff like those, all the core functions, maths and stuff. And then the idea is that other applications like these are gonna basically use the functions from the engine. Okay, so to let other applications use the function from the engine, what we will have to do is actually export the engine as a .dll file. Okay, so we'll basically have to make a lib file, right? A DLL and a lib file. Okay, now if we were statically linking it, we would probably be making a lib file and be done with it. But since we're not statically linking it, we're gonna have to make a dynamic link library or a .dll file, because dynamically linking just makes much more sense for many reasons. Okay, cool. So let's just make it compile into a DLL file. So to do that, it's pretty easy. You're gonna right click on the engine, go to properties, and on here in the general you can see the configuration type. Make sure that you're on all configurations and all platforms. You're going to change this application.exe. You're going to change it from application.exe to dynamic library.dll. Okay, click apply, click OK. Now what's going to happen is when you build it, let's wait for it to build. Yeah, see, so when it successfully builds, if I take a look at the open folder in File Explorer, and if we go back to bin debug engine, you see we get a .dll file, and this is the file that we want. Okay, this is the file that all of our applications that use our engine, need to link against. Okay, cool. Now if you know anything about dynamically linking, you also know that there also should be a .lib file. So that contains all the pointers to these this actual DLL file, but we don't see the lib file. Okay, so what's the issue here? Well, the issue is that even though we were telling the Visual C++ to compile it as a DLL file, but we are not exporting any of the functions to the DLL. Okay, so we have to export it, and the way we export it is there is a kind of like a function that's built into Visual C++ into the Visual Studio, and that's __Dll spec Dll Export. Okay, this basically gives a hint to export that function or the class to the actual DLL. Okay, cool. So so we're just gonna implement it now. Now we could just it's pretty easy to implement. We could just go to like each one of our class, and just after the class name you can just type in __Dll spec Dll Export. We can literally just do that for every single class, and it's gonna work well. It's gonna work pretty well. Okay, but we really don't want to do that. Okay, this is not a good way to do it, because we will also have to use another function called Dll spec Dll import, and those functions and the function called the Dll spec Dll import need to be on the main function. Okay, I mean, okay, cut. But we're not going to do that. Okay, and there's some reason why I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to explain everything. I hope that you guys understand how all these dynamic linking and stuff works. If you don't, then I suggest you not to watching this engine series. I'm being completely honest. I mean, if you don't, you can just search up for like dynamic linking in C++ and YouTube. There are tons of videos. Watch those videos, learn how dynamic linking and all the linking stuff works, and just come back and just continue watching this. That's what I'm trying to say. Okay, cool. All right. Yeah, so to fix that issue, what I'll do is I'll make a new header file. I'll call add new item. What I'll do is I'll call it core.h. Okay, core.h. Right. let me get rid of this, and here we have a core.h header file. Now we're going to use some macros. Alright, so we're going to pound define. I'll do build.dll. Okay, so if build.dll is defined, and if then what we'll do is we'll replace a flag. So I'll just call the flag something like illust2d. So yeah, flag replace not illustrator to i2d with, so define i2d as Dll spec Dll export. Okay, however, if it's not defined, so if elif not elif defined, so if something else is defined, so if build underscore exe is defined, which is going to be our applications that's going to inherit the engine. So for those applications, what we want to do is we want to define i2d as the Dll spec Dll export. Okay, not export, we're going to do import, right? So those applications actually need to import the functions from the DLL. And if static is defined, so if in the future if we decide to ever like statically link it for some reason, we can just throw it in here as well. So so we're going to elif defined build static. What we'll do is we'll define i2d as nothing. Okay, we'll define that as nothing, and if it's giving me some error for some reason. Okay, I should be if defined. Cool. Awesome. So if defined build.dll, we'll define that as to be export, and if it's not, if build.exe, we're going to import, and if for some reason if we are linking it statically, we'll define i2d as nothing. And it will be pretty it will be, yeah, I'll explain it why we what this i2d thing is once we get there, basically. Okay, so I'll just quickly go to my preprocessor. I'll type this build.dll because we are building this engine as the DLL. So I'll do build underscore DLL. With that, apply it. Okay, and see this one gets this one gets lit up, and that's exactly what we want. Okay, so let me go back now. All we have to do is include this core.h header file to every single file that we have here. So it's going to take some time, but yeah, we'll have to do it. So let's just start from here. I'll probably just fast forward it for you. Control C, next buffer, so define it here. But before you do that, we'll have to include core.h, of course. Okay, so let me just include this everywhere first. Okay, so I've included core.h in every single header files that we have in our engine. Now it's time to actually include this i2d in every single class and function definition. Okay, let's do it again. Yeah, so I believe I have included this I2D everywhere. Let me see here. Let me check again. Index buffer. Yep, I should have done it. See here. Oops, I forgot one here. I forgot one here. Can't forget it. Let me check again. Yep, it's done here. Yeah, cool. So awesome. It's done now. The reason why I had done this, now it will be apparent to you. So the reason why I defined I2D as all of this is because now if we if we just hover our mouse over the I2D preprocessor, you can see it expands to Dll spec Dll Export, right? So you don't have to type that Dll spec Dll Export everywhere for every single class or every single function that we make in our engine. All we have to do is just include code. We can just include code.h and just type this I2D and we're done. Okay, and the best thing about it is that this works in our application projects as well, and that's the main reason why I'm doing it. Okay, like for example, if I just had to write Dll Export just in the engine, I could have just written it right here, but since I have to write Dll spec Dll Import in the applications as well, so that's why I made a little macro, and this macro is really good because all we have to do for this macro to work is in the engine, in the preprocessor, I just have to type build underscore dll in the engine, and for all the other applications, all I have to do is I have to right click and I have to do build underscore exe for all the applications, and it works fine. Okay, cool. So if we run the code now, something's gonna change, and what's gonna change is we'll finally get the DLL and the lib file as well. So lib file is what we can use, what the applications can use to link against and do stuff. Now we're getting an error for some reason. It's not a value in third depth, of course. The reason why it's telling it is because it cannot run it, of course, because of course in Windows, Windows need a .exe file to run. Okay, Windows cannot run .dll file. So what we had to do is we just had to build it. Okay, we cannot run it yet. Okay, we will run it after we have an application. So let me just clean the solution. Let me run it here, build it. So we can run our code now once we have made the application project, which we'll do in the next episode. But now we can just build it and check. Hopefully, if we go to right click, open folder in File Explorer, we can see if we go to bin, debug, engine, and bam, we get the .dll and the .lib file, which is the one that we need to build. And this engine application, we can just delete it because we don't want it anymore. Okay, .dll and .lib is exactly what we want. Okay, cool. Stick around for next episode where we're going to be actually making a application project and kind of linking our engine with the application and writing code from the application projects that's going to use the code from the engine project. It's going to be a lot of cross project stuff happening. It's going to be really cool. So stick around for that.